All right, Sony Xperia Z3 Compact versus Apple iPhone 6. This is going to be an honest review, an honest comparison of these two devices here. Brand new 2014. My fanboy-free look at the likes, the dislikes, the goods, the bads, the uglies of both these devices and how they compare to each other, and what you should spend your hard-earned money on. So stay tuned for a fanboy-free look at these two devices. All right, let's start off and talk about the hardware and the outside of these phones and what makes them great and what makes them different as well. First of all, Apple has decided to round the corners of their new iPhone 6. This is much different than the iPhone 5 and 5S. 4.7-inch display on the new 6 as compared to a 4.6-inch display on the Sony. So 0.1-inch difference, but you can see substantial difference in actually size of the devices. Apple has a really large bezel on the top and the bottom of the phone, which makes the phone overall bigger compared to Sony, which has a smaller bezel that you can see here with the 4.6-inch display. So even though the displays are close in size, the phone is substantially longer in the iPhone. Width-wise, it's maybe a hair wider as well. You can see if we line them up. Overall, the fit and finish of both of these phones is very, very good. I think they both qualify as a premium build in my opinion. iPhone 6 is going to be aluminum unibody construction. Xperia Z3 Compact is going to be polycarbonate or plastic construction, but definitely solidly built, not creaky, not flimsy like a Galaxy phone. We've seen these latest videos of Apple where people have been bending the phones. I'm not going to bend this phone, but both these phones I would imagine would bend if you put enough pressure on them. But the point of the comparison of the hardware and of the build is that they both feel solid. They feel like quality devices. They feel great in your hand. They feel like really, really excellent, well-designed premium phones. You won't find better designs, in my opinion, in terms of cell phones right now. Maybe HTC, maybe Motorola, depending on your taste. But for me, I really enjoy the premium build on the Sony as well as the premium build on the Apple. Jumping into some of the other sort of external features of these phones, on the outside, we have a bottom facing speaker here on the iPhone. That's standard, typical, kind of annoying in my opinion. You grab the phone with your hand and the speaker comes out of the bottom. Sony has taken that one step further and likes, same thing with HTC. They've included dual stereo speakers on the front of the phone. Awesome design. Put the phone down on the table, sound comes out of the top. Hold the phone in your hand, sound comes right at you. Much different than the iPhone where it's projecting down and not at the user. So points to Sony there. Other aspects of the design, both phones have power and volume rockers on the side of the phone, which is nice to have. Sony, a little bit of a design enhancement here with this sort of refined power button. Also external camera button on the Xperia, which is nice to have. Apple lacks that feature. Flip the phones over. Sort of external, I would say, camera lens, not flush with the design, sort of a design failure in my opinion. I think that, put the phone down and it tends to rock, tends to pick up stuff, scratches on the surface. You can see a little bit of debris here from the table. Nice flat flush design with the Sony camera, 20.7 megapixels, 8 megapixel camera here, so substantially larger sensor size in the Sony than the Apple. They both do take really good quality pictures. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the review, but for now you can see there's a significant difference in terms of overall megapixels. Dual LED flash on the iPhone, single LED flash on the Sony. Might have a little bit of an advantage here with the nice neutral colors as opposed to the sort of more LED colored, that sort of blue tint, standard flash tint here on the Sony. Other aspects of the hardware from the outside that you might notice or appreciate between these two phones, weight-wise, they feel very, very close. In hand, they feel very, very similar. They're not that much different in terms of their overall size. Personally, I prefer the rounded edges of the new iPhone 6 compared to the sort of plastic molding on the Xperia Z3 Compact. I do like this, don't get me wrong. I don't think this is a bad design. I just like the way the new iPhone feels. There's something about how the glass is rounded at the edge and how the roundness continues to go all the way around the phone. That just makes it really, really premium feeling and really nice in your hand. Sony definitely has a flattened glass edge and then the round continues from there. And so it's a different feel and it's a different sort of, I would say, ergonomic feeling when you have both these phones in your hands. And personally, I prefer the iPhone 6 over the Sony in that regard. Fully waterproof design on the Sony, very, very nice to have. all the ports and holes are sealed in flaps, and so anytime you want to charge the phone, you have to sort of undo one of these flaps. But these flaps do have gaskets on them, and so they are sealed from the elements. So you've got a waterproof build here on the Sony. Not so with the iPhone 6. Drop the iPhone in water and you're toast. Drop the Sony in water and you're good to go. iPhone does have the Touch ID button at the bottom, sort of included in the home button now. Very, very nice feature to have. Put your finger on the phone and it automatically unlocks. Very smooth, very fast, very seamless. Also allows for NFC payments with the built-in NFC chip. Both these phones do have NFC, Android Wallet, Google Wallet on the Sony, Apple Pay on the iPhone. Does have that secure element in the Touch ID, which makes for really nice secure payments. Same thing on Google, just a little bit more convenient with the Touch ID button on the iPhone. Other things to think about in terms of the overall look, feel, design, build of the phones. Both are GSM, so they both do work with SIM cards. They both are LTE. So if you have LTE GSM in your area and you just want to throw in your nano SIM, they both take a nano SIM. There's a slot on the iPhone. It's under a port here on the Xperia. The Xperia also does have a charging dock here on the bottom, which you can buy an adapter for and sit the phone into the dock. Apple, you'd have to get a third-party sort of dock adapter as well. Jumping into the screen of these two phones, like I said, 4.6 on the Xperia, 4.7 on the iPhone. Very, very close in terms of screen size. And the screens on both these phones are excellent. They are fantastic screens. Retina display on the iPhone, high quality, high density pixels. I don't even know the pixel count. It doesn't matter. You can't see the pixels on both these phones, so it doesn't really make a difference how many pixels there are. Both of them are extremely high quality, great colors, great color accuracy, great viewing angles. If I had to pick, though, one of these phones, I'd say the iPhone has a little bit better in terms of its viewing angles. The light seems to drop off a little bit less on angles with the iPhone. Also, color-wise, I think the iPhone is a little more neutral color, a little more warm tones. The Xperia seems to be a little bit more blue. You can probably see it here on both these guys in terms of their whites for chrome. More blue here, more sort of gray, kind of tan color there. This kind of annoys me a little bit. I don't like how blue the cast is on that screen. So to me, the edge of the display quality goes to the iPhone in that comparison. Other features of these phones to talk about in terms of maybe performance and software, both extremely fast with their respective OSs. Android 4.4.4 on the Sony. Android L is coming out very soon. Sony has said that they will provide Android L for the new Xperia line, so that shouldn't be a problem. The only issue is when. We don't know exactly when Android L is going to come to the Sony, and so if you want fast updates, Apple is going to be the phone for you. iPhones receive their updates as soon as they're released from Apple, and so that's a really nice feature to have, to be able to get the updates right away as soon as they're dropped. Other features to talk about in terms of software, the Sony has Android, obviously, and the iPhone has iOS. And so, well, what does that mean for you as a consumer? If you come from an Android phone, you'd probably prefer the Sony. If you come from an iPhone, you'd probably prefer the iPhone. If you're going to switch ecosystems, if you're going to switch between companies, Google or Apple, you're going to want to think about your applications, which apps are going to be offered on both platforms. For the most part, all major apps are going to be offered on both of these platforms. The only difference is if you paid for an app on one platform, you're probably going to have to pay for it again on the other platform. And so that can be something to think about in terms of how much money that's going to cost you and how much frustration that's going to cost you if you decide to switch between these two devices. Okay, let's talk about camera performance here real quick. You can see the difference, the screen, and this is just, you can't really make this comparison in terms of the color accuracy of these photos because the LCDs are different. So what we're going to talk more about in terms of camera performance is just the overall picture quality, indoors and outdoors, picture speed, camera utilities, that sort of thing. Both these cameras are fantastic. They both offer really, really nice, I would call it overall picture quality. The quality of the iPhone and the quality of the Xperia is great. They both are sharp. They both offer great indoor low light capabilities. They both offer excellent outdoor available light photography. The iPhone does have the edge in terms of its 240 frames per second slow-mo mode. The Xperia has the edge in terms of its higher megapixel count. And so a little bit of a difference there between these devices. But overall, I would say that they both are great camera phones, and it's really, really nice to have two top of the line phones have awesome cameras included in both of them. If I had to pick one of these cameras, I honestly would prefer to go with the iPhone. Case in point, Sony had some problems that I've experienced with indoor shots with banding. One of the shots I took had some had some white and black bands in it. I wasn't sure if it was the scene, so I picked up my iPhone and shot the same exact scene, and there was no banding in the picture. So maybe with some software updates, Sony will be able to improve the camera and fix any of the issues that they were having with it. But for now, this camera comparison between these two devices is very, very close. And I think as an amateur photographer, or as using this as a sort of in your pocket camera, they would both very, very much suit your needs. Battery life is probably the biggest difference between these two phones. The battery life in the iPhone is good, and it probably will get you about a day of average use. The battery in the Xperia blows that out of the water. It gets you easily 2 days of use on this phone, and that's running KitKat. That's not even running Android L. And so when we see Android L drop, I would like to see the stats on this guy in terms of its battery life, because you can definitely squeeze 2 days of battery out of this phone. And what makes it even more enjoyable to use is actually within the settings, there's a way to tweak every single last little drop of battery out of this phone. And that is really, really awesome, because people love being able to use their phones for as long as they can. And when you can come in here and change your battery settings, right, and change what apps are in standby, when standby is active, you can go into sort of ultra stamina mode. You can literally run this phone down as long as possible before you need to charge it. And that's great considering it's waterproof. It'd be a great outdoor phone to use while hunting or while fishing, camping, etc. Don't worry about it going dead on you on critical sort of trips in the outdoors. iPhone, on the other hand, gets you, like I said, about a day of use. They definitely have sort of made iOS 8 work well with the size batteries they put in this phone, so I won't complain about the battery life, but it would have been better for Apple to sort of maybe make the phone a hair thicker and stick a bigger battery in it. So that's sort of annoying that they decided to sacrifice thinness for utility, in my opinion. And so in closing, well, which one of these phones should you buy? And that primarily comes down to a number of things. And I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money. But if you just consider the off-contract prices for both these phones, we've got $529 unlocked, $650 unlocked for the iPhone. And that's a pretty big difference. That's over $100 for phones that are very, very close in terms of what they can do and what they offer you. My personal opinion in this matter is I prefer the iPhone over the Sony. Even though I like Android and I'm a diehard Android user, the little bit of screen difference here, the different color cast on the screen, the better viewing angles, the predictably good camera, and the direct updates from Apple really have sold me on the iPhone 6 over the Xperia Z3. I think that as great as the Xperia Z3 is, there's a couple little things for me that I don't really like, and I'm going to end up using a different Android phone rather than the Sony. But in this comparison between these two devices, my choice goes with the iPhone 6. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this little comparison here. Don't forget to check out everything else I have on YouTube, and rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks.